This is Bill Mick Live, iHeartRadio's talk for the Space Coast. With today's Common Sense on Common Radio. Here's Bill Mick.
It's Monday, the 10th of May, 2021. It's hour 3 of Bill Mick Live for the Monday morning. O'Galley Electric making it possible on 92.7 FM and the various other methods you can join us. And at BillMick.com, our headline for the day, where we started and where we're going to start hour number 3, education and the audacity of elitism. Dave Bowman joins us from
Washington, where he's not enjoying the bright, sunny day yet. It's still a little bit dark out there. Morning, Dave. How you doing, buddy?
A little bit dark. It's still the middle of the night here, man.
Yeah. I can't help it. You chose to live on the West Coast, dude.
Yeah, West Coast is it's the place to be.
Okay, well, good for you. I tell you what, I've seen some of your photos with you and the family out traveling. Some beautiful sights there in Washington State, and you're taking local day trips to do this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things. My particularly with the lockdowns and the quarantines and pandemic and everything, we try to take little day trips. Everything, pretty much everything you see is within a couple of hours. So we have a good time, and I mean, we can go from the Olympic Mountains to Mount Rainier to the Puget Sound to Spokane. It's a great area.
Yeah, it sounds like it is, and it really looks like it in the pictures that you've shared. I love seeing those, and it looks like you guys have a good time. Now, as you take those trips, are you finding places where you can stop and grab lunch or dinner, depending on how long you're gone, where you're at, or has it been kind of tough for you?
Well, remarkably, back in March, I don't even know what month it is. This is May. So back in early March, the governor moved everybody to quote-unquote phase 3, which is 75%, no masks while you're eating, indoor dining, that sort of thing. And so, no, I mean, everything outside of Tacoma and Seattle, everything's pretty much open. I think people up here don't have as much problem with the mask issue as they do in other places. I think we've just kind of gotten used to it. And, you know, it's kind of a second nature thing now. I mean, I just carry one in my pocket so that if I need it, I can pop it on. If I don't, then I don't. But
anybody give you grief when you're not?
No. In fact, I accidentally walked into the local mall the other day and actually walked almost halfway through the mall without it before I realized I didn't have it on. And nobody said anything. So I don't think anybody's going to say anything. You're always going to find a Karen or two somewhere that will, but to me, nobody has. But I think it's just kind of become second nature. It's like leaving house with your keys and your wallet, you know?
Uh-huh. You see that as a good or a bad thing?
I don't know. As a historian, I recognize the fact that cultures and societies change. And I know that once upon I can't find anywhere in 1918 or 1919 where everybody objected to having to wear a mask. In fact, what I see are pictures of people at baseball games and weddings and everything else wearing masks. We've been through it before. We'll be through it again. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. The only problem I have with the bill is it makes my glasses fog up, and I hate that. But beyond that,
right.
It's one of those things where I could waste a lot of my day getting upset about it, but I just got better things to get upset about.
Well, let me ask you this then. Again, from your perspective as a historian, have we learned anything? Are we doing any better than we've ever done?
God, no. I mean,
there we go.
I mean, other than the science, other than the production of vaccines, I was talking to somebody the other day about the fact that we've learned so much in vaccine science over just the last 100 years that I don't think people appreciate the miracle of creating a vaccine from literally nowhere in the time it took to do it, Operation Warp Speed. And even that miracle has become politicized because now, depending on whether you're good orange man, bad orange man, that colors how you see the vaccine as opposed to whether or not you see it as, hey, look what these companies did in a limited amount of time because of our experience that we've gained over these 150 years. That's unfortunate, but that's history, and we don't learn anything. If we did learn anything, do you think we'd be doing the same things again?
we wouldn't be repeating it over and over. That's true. Well, and the same tends to be true in the education realm, and we want to go there in this hour, and we're going to do that for a couple of stories anyway. But let's get a quick phone call in as we get the hour started. Line 1, you're on with Bill and Dave. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
We're good, Steve. Tell me what you're thinking today.
Well, I look at this Fauci thing, and then I see these reports, a couple reports trickle in here and there, and it seems like in 2014, just to give it a little step back, Obama had told him to not continue his He was trying to weaponize this virus, and he was using U.S. funds to do it in Wuhan lab. Does anyone remember that? That's going on. And now you got Fauci, and he's never going to let this go. He likes the attention of saving the entire world. But really, he's the Hitler behind most of this stuff, and he can't let up the boot on our throats, because once that's done, it's natural for people in Congress to sit there and start looking at it. And once he does that, he lets up, and this thing's basically more or less over. He's going to go to prison, or should go to prison.
Based on what?
Based on that he was at that lab, and when people start looking at it, he was doing the testing. He was in charge of the testing from 2014. Obama told him to stop it. Basically to stop it, and Fauci kept on with it, and it was basically jumping from wherever this was to humans, was his testing, which is trying to make a weapon, in my opinion. Why would you do that in a lab, and then it suddenly breaks out, and now you're the hero of the world? No. That's like those people.
Interesting thoughts, Steve. Dave, you any thoughts there?
I'm going to invoke Godwin's law and just move on.
Okay, you'll have to tell me what Godwin's law is one of these days. When we come back in 60 seconds, we're going to take a look at Oklahoma. We're jumping back to the education realm where we started this morning, and the elitism that's in education and what's being passed around and started there. Dave was raised at least partially in Oklahoma and has an affinity for the place. He'll be able to share some perspectives with us on the thoughts of those Oklahomans, and we'll tell you what they're doing when it comes to a trend in education here on Bill Mick Live. Dave Bowman, the host of Plausibly Live, the Dave Bowman Show podcast, former radio partner of mine in Modesto, is with us. Dave, how long were you in Oklahoma? How much time did you spend there?
Oh, as a resident, about 3 years, but I've spent many, many years going back and forth. My grandparents are from there. My parents are from there. My parents just moved back there. So,
oh, really?
We're planning a trip to Oklahoma in July. So, yeah, I'm
and
very.
You're a big Sooner fan. We have fun in football season.
Yes, this is true. I am a Sooner fan, although not as big as a Navy fan as I am. So.
Well, yeah, understand that too. By the way, I was watching Army-Navy baseball yesterday. Navy was just pounding the ball, man.
As was appropriate.
Yeah, very true. Anyway, Oklahoma officially banning a new trend in education, critical race theory, from being taught in their schools. I would love to see school districts across the country do this. Have you had a chance to play with this at all, Dave, or take a look?
So let's take a couple of questions here. Why would you like to see this? What is it about critical race theory that you think necessitates a ban?
I think it drives further division and hatred, and it further serves to promote the things it claims to be trying to counter.
Okay, so take the words critical race theory out of that sentence and fill it in with anything you want. Conservatism, liberalism, evolutionaryism, creationism, put whatever you want in there. Do we as conservatives, as leaning libertarian, do we really believe that the answer to bad speech is to ban speech?
Not at all.
So why are we different about this? What is it different about critical race theory that causes us to abandon our principles?
I don't know that we're abandoning our principles when we stand up for something like that. It's an interesting question, but when you've got young minds full of mush being fed whatever they're being fed, indoctrinated, if you will, when it's not being presented in a balanced fashion, if it were so, maybe it's a different conversation.
Okay. I will stipulate that, but here's the continuation question. How many pages does this bill in Oklahoma actually contain?
I have no idea.
Fortunately, I do, Bill. and here's
that's why I send them to you to look at.
I'm left with two questions about this bill in Oklahoma, my beloved ancestral home where my parents will be buried, and yada yada yada. Number one, if I'm really a truly conservative libertarian, do I believe that the answer to bad speech is more free speech? Yes or no? And if I believe that it is, then banning speech is not the answer. The answer is to educate my own children to be able to use their teachers as stimuli, not as oracles. The second question I have is, what's the emergency in Oklahoma? And that's the answer.
In what regard?
Well,
you mean why
this bill declares an emergency in Oklahoma that, quote, necessitates, unquote, the banning of certain, not all, but certain things being taught in their schools. They have actually declared a state of emergency that requires this. Now, I have spent the last year talking about the fact that governments are declaring states of emergency for anything and everything they can as ludicrous.
As an excuse to do something.
Exactly.
We'll explore it more. Dave Bowman with us in this hour. You can join us, too, when we continue in moments on WMMB.
Call Bill now, 321-768-1240.
A link for you to Dave Bowman's show and the show page today at BillMick.com, so you can check that out at your convenience. Dave joins us
from Silverdale, Washington, where he resides. Still in the dark this morning, apparently.
Yeah.
I just think that's funny, Dave.
You know what's funny about that is I was talking to our friend Zach Beyruti yesterday, who's in Salt Lake City right now, about sunrises in and how the further north you go, it gets later and later. It's like, what am I, in Alaska here?
Oh, that's funny. Now, Zach, for those of you who don't know, Zach's a baseball broadcaster. Dave and I met him when he was working the Single-A California League Stockton Ports, and he has since been picked up and promoted. Where's he at now, Dave?
He's in Reno, AAA Reno, for what they now call AAA West. It used to be known as the Pacific Coast League. But, yeah, he's with Reno, the Reno Aces.
Part of the A's organization?
Actually, no, part of the Diamondbacks, Arizona.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And who were the Ports with? Were they with the A's?
They're still with the A's, yeah.
Okay, very good. So he's moved around. He's been recognized for what he's doing. He does a good job on the radio. Baseball is so much fun to broadcast, as you and I both know.
Yeah. I think I listen to a lot of baseball. I watch a lot of baseball. I listen to a lot of baseball. For my money, there's Vin Scully and then there's Zach. And the rest of them are minor league comparative.
That's high praise. It really is.
Yeah. I really – Zach does a great job. And if you've never listened to him, MILB will let you listen to radio games for free. So you should tune those in sometime.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. He's a good guy, and I almost said kid. He's a man, but he's a kid to me and you. And we caught him early in his career, and he was had to wear multiple hats working for the Stockton Ports.
Yep, he did.
And doing sales and other things in addition to doing the broadcast. And have they moved a lot of those to online only, or is he still doing radio stuff too?
He's doing just radio from what I understand. Now, keep in mind that MILB does TV, but they feed their radio feed into that. So he does their home games television too. So.
Always thought that was a better broadcast anyway.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, like I said, if you love baseball the way I do, and who doesn't? And if you don't, what are you, a commie?
Yeah.
You can't.
Soccer fan.
Hey, the WNBA Storm won a game the other night, Bill.
Dave, who cares?
Nobody.
We hate the WNBA, by the way. All right, let's get back to our question on the education stuff.
Okay.
You were asking that if conservatives believe in free speech. I don't see this speech as being free in schools when it's being mandated, and they're preaching things like division, like you have to be upset over race or sex issues, that people are inherently racist when that's being mandated by government. Isn't a restriction on government wise here? Is this not a good move on the part of the state of Oklahoma or other states that do this?
Who was mandating it in Oklahoma? I can't.
The education establishment. It's not that it's being mandated. It's what they're teaching through what is filtered down from these alleged institutions of higher learning.
Haven't we been saying
the
for
critical
years,
race
Bill,
theory and all of this gender stuff has to be played out, the social agenda stuff in our schools.
But haven't we recognized? I mean, what's the difference between that and the schools teaching the theory of evolution back in the 1920s? I mean, at some point, we have to recognize the fact that educators are going to do what they're going to do. And the question is, how do we react to that? Do we teach our children to, I think somebody said it on your show earlier this morning, are we teaching our children to think, or are we teaching them to go to an oracle and be blessed with whatever information pours forth from these teachers' mouths? I mean, Ben's in the fifth grade.
We're getting a lot of B, to be honest.
Well, but should we be? And is the solution to enforce dictatorial mandates, or is the solution to teach people to think, if you borrow a phrase, critically? Ben's in the fifth grade, and he and I have discussions.
To think critically, I'd agree with you, Dave. But again, these things filter down from higher education to our education systems, and the elitists therein don't listen to anybody, number one. They don't care what parents think, number two. They believe because they have all of their faith in their education degrees that they are wiser than anybody on the planet. And if we tell you that critical race theory is important, it's important. Don't buck us. We're the education system. There's frustration here big time.
I think that they might think that, but I also know that we have failed. I mean, Bill, you and I have been in this business together for 20 years. How many years have we spent complaining about the fact that parents allow their kids to be taught this stuff? That's what I'm saying about Ben. Ben and I argue almost every day about stuff he learns at school as to whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, because to me it's important that he's a kid. So sometimes he takes what's said to him not as much as a stimulus as he does, oh, this is a fact, without thinking about it. So I have to teach him to think, because really his teacher has 30 kids, some of them on Zoom, some of them like Ben right now quarantined. You know, she doesn't have time to tell whether or not a kid is believing her absolute. I mean, what's the difference between that and Sunday school? I mean, kids go to Sunday school and they get told this about God, and they just buy into that for the rest of their life, and they never ask questions about it. There comes a point where there has to be parental accountability and responsibility. And part of our job as a parent is to teach our kids to question things, question boldly, as Jefferson said. And we're not doing that either. So what the hell do we expect to have happen at schools? I mean, this is...
Okay, so how do we rectify the school issue, though? If they're doing things that we believe as parents that are wrong, and they're not going to correct it on their own, do the government entities and the tax dollars that get funded into them, if that's not the way to get it corrected, are you just saying, let schools go to hell, and it's our fault as parents if we don't do anything about it?
If that's what's happening. I mean, that's the first key. If that's what's happening. I can't find in Oklahoma where anybody was mandating this at all. I certainly don't see a state of emergency that necessitated the legislature of the state of Oklahoma to have a session where they decided that this was an emergency. We got to do something. This is something, so let's do this. What are we actually teaching kids? We're actually teaching them that if we don't like something, we ban it. That way you never have to see it, which is exactly what the dictatorial left does, and we complain about, and now we're doing it. Why don't we teach people that critical race theory is flawed? There's plenty of educational material out there to guide our kids that way, but we don't seem to want to use that. We just want to go, well, if you never have to see it, then you won't be infected by it.
What I think you're missing in all the discussion is the broken nature of our education system and trying to get a handle on it. How else do you get a handle on it if you don't have the, in quotes, higher levels of government saying, here's how you're going to have to do this because you're messing it up? What do you do to correct what's going on?
Well, you're never going to fix the education system, because the education system is driven by federal money, and once you take the money, you're stuck with the feds. Well, the answer to your question is stop taking federal dollars. But nobody's going to do that because, really, I mean, if we stop taking federal money, we won't have an education system. Well, that's not true, but at the same time, how do you convince people of that? And the answer is obviously charter schools, private schools, the likes of that. And if we really believe in a free market, how hard is a private school going to be? If we really believe in that. Now, I understand there's going to be some expenses involved, but this is the 21st century. We know how to set up nonprofits.
I also think part of that answer is traveling the tax dollars with the child wherever he goes to school, even if it's homeschooled. But I got to leave it there for a second as I remind everybody, O'Galley Electric makes the hour possible. Boys and girls, we're a month and a half away from the start of hurricane season. Your home, your family, you want to protect it all. How do you do that? Well, any storm we get brushed by is going to bring a power outage. It could be hours, it could be days, and yes, here on the Space Coast, we've seen power outages for weeks at a time. Well, O'Galley Electric has the answer with a Generac home standby generator. And with O'Galley Electric, no delay while your Generac home standby generator is ordered and then delivered to the dealer. No. O'Galley Electric maintains an inventory, and they can deliver, install, and service your Generac home standby generator right now. Call them for a free estimate. It's 321-425-3343. Online, you find them at eggenerators.com. Let Chris Hughes and that great staff at O'Galley Electric get you ready for the storm season ahead. And by the way, you prepare now. You don't prepare once it's here. It's, we get enough advanced warning on these things. You might as well be ready for it and let O'Galley Electric help you do just that. We appreciate their long-term sponsorship here on Bill Mick Live. Dave Bowman hosts Plausibly Live, the Dave Bowman Show podcast. You can catch up with that at the link provided at BillMick.com. And as we continue, we're going to wrap up this education discussion, get your calls in play, and I hope we have time for stupid cop tricks, because we've got one that it's also education related, but we turn things into crime, into felonies, ruining a girl's life for a stupid mistake that she and her mother made. But is it worth 16 years in jail for the now 18-year-old girl? Probably not. All of that ahead on this Monday edition of Bill Mick Live.
Bill's not a bird. He does not tweet. Bill has a face. Facebook we do. Like the WMMB Facebook page and join the gang.
$1,000 up for grabs 12 times a day from our 7 a.m. hour through the 9 p.m. hour. You've got 10 more opportunities ahead of you today. Listen for that keyword and then enter it on the website at WMMBAM.com. I'd love to see you win the money. O'Galley Electric, that's our nationwide contest from iHeartRadio, by the way. Our O'Galley Electric bringing you this hour of the show as Dave Bowman.
He is the host of Plausibly Live, the Dave Bowman Show podcast. It's linked up for you at BillMick.com this morning as well. We're talking this critical race theory in Dave's almost native land of Oklahoma, saying we're going to ban this stuff in our schools. Dave says, why ban it? Why not counter it and teach people to think? Dave, let's get a call or two in as we have the opportunity. We're going to start with Keith in Palm Bay. Hey, Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. Just a quick question on a sports thing, sports related. How many billions of dollars do you think it's going to cost from the internet all the way down to the corner street gambler on the latest four-legged drug controversy a week later? Did you hear that? That the horse was drugged.
Yep. We talked about this yesterday.
Let's not pretend they're not all drugged. The question is, he gets too much of it. There's the problem.
All right. On the critical race theory, and let me preface it, I haven't read it. I don't know why Oklahoma called it an emergency, and it shouldn't have. But from multiple reports and multiple sources, I have heard that they have already got this curriculum printed in a textbook for class. You know, when we hear these controversies, it's already too late almost to fight about it. And then on top of that, if the place bans something like that or something, they have implemented into a social studies book too. So you have to get rid of them. You know, they've already got these printed and selling them to schools. That might be what the controversy is. And to my understanding of the teaching, I haven't read it, but This is literally teaching hate. And you said the other day there isn't an absolute to rights. There is an absolute. It's just that there's repercussions if you use it for hate or killing somebody, murder, everything. There's repercussions. I don't believe in banning it, but I don't want it in schools.
Go ahead, Dave.
Because I think it points out how ridiculous the 1619 project too, along with it.
All right. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you being here. Dave, your thoughts?
Well, again, I'm a historian. I'm familiar with bad history, but in the same vein that bad speech is countered by more good speech, I'm not in favor of critical race theory. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but I don't see it as the boogeyman under the bed that everybody seems to think it is. I mean, new math was a thing when I was a kid. Remember how that was supposed to screw us all up? Well, things change. I get it.
But we topped that with Common Core. Come on.
Yeah. But at the same time, Bill, again, what's more important, teaching our principles or teaching that if we don't like something, we just ban it? And that way we never have to see it. I mean, what's the difference between that and what the church did to Galileo? I don't see any difference at all.
Interesting thought. We go next to Lou, who's in Tampa. Hey, Lou, good morning.
Hey, guys.
What do you think, buddy?
The problem is the word theory. It's not a theory. It's a way of teaching. So it's not like evolution or creationism theories. You're teaching kids, if they're white, that they're born racist. It's kind of like the schools that we find in certain areas with the Muslim faith, where they teach the kids that Americans are bad and we got to kill them, and you're going to get 72 virgins when you go to heaven. So it's that kind of way. I mean, not that bad, but that's what they're doing. They're teaching that. So for the first time in my life, for instance, I had the term toxic masculinity used against me in a conversation with my 15-year-old son. He didn't learn that word from me. He learned that in school. So that's what they're doing. They're shaping the minds of the kids and trying to solve a race issue by telling white people that they're racist from the moment they're born, which is not what happens. If you understand what I'm saying on that.
Dave, did you slap, or Lou, did you slap the toxic masculinity into him when he said that?
I did smack him in the back of the head, but
But seriously, what did you do? When he said that to you, what did you do? What was your reaction? Are you there, Lou?
Yeah. I just told him that he's learning things that are not true. The term, I think what I said was, you're discussing a term and pointing it towards me based on, I'm a regular guy, I guess is what you would call it. It's not like. So
you sat your son down and you taught him to think. And this is what I'm saying. If you think critical race theory is absurd, and I do, that's fine. Do you think other things that are taught in school, global warming, some issues with social state, believe me, you're going to hear some absurd things from your kid. I hear them every day. Like I said, my son's in 5th grade. But you can just ignore that, or you could ban it, or you could take that opportunity to, teach your kid. Which one is the action of the libertarian-leaning conservative? Not a Libertarian Party member, a libertarian-thinking person who believes in liberty, freedom of speech, and those sorts of things. Which action is appropriate? I mean, what does it Christians say? What WWJD? What would Jesus do? We need to start asking ourselves that about our own political believing. What would a conservative do? What would a libertarian do? And if the answer is ban it, that's
inconsistent. You're saying,
yeah. I don't see how you can not see
that.
Hey,
we get back to more of that. With that question on the table, we've got room for you at 321-768-1240 when we pick it up in 1 minute on Bill Mick Live. What's the appropriate counter to critical race theory? The question Dave Bowman has put in front of us. You'll find more from Dave at Plausibly Live, the Dave Bowman Show podcast. Staying with the phones, Dave, we go to Matt, who's in West Melbourne. Matt, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. So Dave, you're ignoring one fundamental issue, and just for a point of reference, you mentioned libertarians and conservatives. I'm the national chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus, which is the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. So I hang out with a lot of libertarian-leaning type folks, right? So what you're ignoring is the fact that the government has a monopoly on education. You don't have a choice, or in some states you have very limited choices. You can homeschool, or maybe you can get vouchers.
Wait. I'm ignoring that? Didn't we literally just talk about that about 10 minutes ago?
I've been listening for about 10 minutes. I didn't hear the monopoly part. Never heard
we
you
talked
say
about
that.
if you take the federal money, if you take the federal money, you're stuck with the federal stuff, right? Did I not say that?
That's probably before Matt was listening, according to his timeline. But yeah, you did. We did hit on that, Matt.
I'm not even talking about the federal money. I'm talking about the fact that there are truancy laws, federal money or not. You cannot choose to keep your kid home from school. It's illegal. Do you understand that?
No, you cannot choose to not educate your child. You can keep him home and homeschool him as far as that goes, Matt.
But those are very limited options. That's what I'm saying. This idea that we should somehow suck it up, buttercup, and let a public school poison the minds of our kids for multiple hours a day while the parents are working their asses off to make ends meet, and then you dare say that we can't challenge the curriculum that's being taught?
That's not what I said. That's not what I said, Matt. That is not what I said. You're mischaracterizing everything. I didn't say don't challenge it. I said you challenge it.
Wait, but the parents on their own time, how do you do that? That's
well, if you don't want a parent, don't be a parent.
Trying to make ends meet.
Send your kid to school. Let the school educate him.
Hang on, Matt. Let's get Dave's response. Go ahead, Dave.
If you don't want a parent, why do you have kids? Isn't this what we say as conservatives all the time? We're tired of people having kids they don't want to take care of? If we really believe that, why are we acting that way? All I'm saying to you, and this is all I've said before, is if you don't want to participate, then you're going to get the schooling that the government gives them. Or you can, to borrow a phrase that you just said, get off your ass and do it yourself. This is what I choose to do. I'm not saying you have to do it, but that's what I'm going to do. That's what I did.
But the taxes are being extracted by force. That's my point. Like, I don't.
What does that have to do with critical race theory?
How can you possibly draw a comparison to Galileo in the Catholic Church? I mean, it's just stunning.
It's stunning to think for yourself. It's stunning to consider.
I got a bunch of calls to try to get to, and we're not going to make it to all of them. But rather than come up with a solution, let's fuss with each other. Line 4, you're next on Bill Mick Live. Good morning.
Good morning, Dave, and third wisest man. To follow on what Matt was talking about, to quote Frederick Bastiat, the most urgent necessity is not that the state should teach, but that it should allow education. All monopolies are detestable, but the worst of all is the monopoly of education. I would like to add that there is a big difference between banning speech and paying a government employee from tax dollars that are extracted under compulsion, paying them to indoctrinate our children with false doctrine, things that are untruth. And this critical race theory is blatantly a bunch of lies, just like global warming. And just
we get where you're coming from, Skip. Dave, I'll give you time for a quick response, and we'll try to squeeze in one more call.
Was that actually happening in Oklahoma? Were they actually forcing people to learn critical race theory in Oklahoma? I can't find where they were.
Being injected into the curriculum.
I can't find where it was being.
Doesn't mean it's not there. Absence of evidence is not evidence. Line 5, you're on Bill Mick Live. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Joe. How are you doing?
Good, Joe. Limited time. Go right ahead.
I had a real quick one. The federal government only contributes 9% of education in the average.
How much?
Nation. 9%.
9. Then we should throw it out right now. 9%. If we can't cut 10%, we're not smart.
But the second point of it is the federal government doesn't dictate curriculum. The states dictate curriculum. The thing in Oklahoma was just a show because Oklahoma controls the education. The Republicans control the education in Oklahoma. They're the ones that dictate the curriculum. The federal government doesn't dictate any curriculum.
All right, we're down to under a minute. Dave, I'm going to give you the closing words on this. Go right ahead.
Well, two things. They do dictate curriculum. If you don't teach Common Core, you can't get your 9% of your money or whatever it is. Bill, you can argue this till you're blue in the face, but the simple fact is the state of Oklahoma declared an emergency to ban critical race theory. We've been decrying these governments declaring emergencies now for a year because we've seen the damage it can do. If you have to declare an emergency to ban speech, and I'm going to break Godwin's law here, how is that any different from the Reichstag Act of 1933?
And I love where you're at. Dave Bowman, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk again next Monday, huh?
I'll see you then.
All right. Thanks to O'Galley Electric. They made the hour possible. The podcast will be up shortly at BillMick.com and on the iHeartRadio channel. Have a great Monday, everybody.